Hey everyone, and welcome to Once Upon a Time at the Oscars.
The show that takes you through every Best Picture nominee from 1927 to today.
I'm Kyle.
And I'm a white guy with a podcast.
This is true. Me too, dude.
Oh, wow.
Isn't that wild?
Another thing we have in common.
Wild how many things there are that we have in common.
I know. I'm Ryan, by the way.
Did you say that?
I think I said I'm a white guy with a podcast. Did I?
Oh, you did. Excuse my memory.
Just in case. If you didn't listen to the last episode, we might not be recording. This could be a fever dream of mine.
I panic checked the recording. We are, in fact, recording.
Okay, well, I just imagine waking up tomorrow and you're like, hey, buddy, sorry you didn't ever show up for a recording. I'm like, I recorded 2 episodes.
And I'm like, but it's fine. We got another random white guy that liked a podcast.
And no one noticed the difference. We are talking about our second movie in the 5th Academy Award year, and that would be Frank Borzage's Bad Girl.
So cool. First movie we covered for the 5th Academy, we had the return of Ernst Lubitsch.
Yeah.
Second film, the return of original Best Director winner, Frank Borzage, famously of Seventh Heaven.
Yes, and a cool little feat that he achieves here that we'll talk a little bit in comparison to Louis Milestone, but there's a lot of cool little details behind Frank Borzage's second feature in the Academy Awards. So Bad Girl specifically had 3 nominations. It was nominated for Best Picture. This was on behalf of Fox. Nominated for Best Director, which was Frank Borzage, and Best Adapted Screenplay from Edwin J. Burke. But because it's adapted, so it is based on the 1928 novel written by Vina Del Mar, and there was a 1930 play, which was also written by Vina Del Mar, but also Brian Marlowe. So who is in Bad Girl, Kyle?
In Bad Girl, you have James Dunn, Sally Ehlers.
I thought Ehlers.
Sally Ehlers, and Mina Gambel, excuse me.
I also have William Pauly as Jim Haley. But, well...
Is that the brother?
That is the brother.
That's the brother, okay.
But there's a little interesting detail about him, too.
Oh, okay.
A little fun detail right off the bat here. Obviously, Sally Ehlers plays Dorothy Haley and James Dunn plays Eddie Collins. But did you notice in the very end of this movie, the end credits, it lists Sally Ehlers as the girl?
Yes.
And James Dunn as the boy.
I really like that.
I thought so, too. It did kind of send me on an existential crisis a bit, where I was like, I'm pretty sure I know their names.
Right.
People call them Dot and Eddie.
You know, I want to come back to that boy and girl thing at the end, because I think it is a very nice cherry on top for the movie as a whole. But yeah, Bad Girl, interesting story in how it was made and like how we got the end product we did.
Often on screen.
Exactly. This is a story that contains many taboos of the time. This is very pre-code Hollywood. You can feel that they've taken this story that has some quote-unquote unsavory topics and really tweak them to fit the censors and all of that. And I think they did so in a way that I would say was very successful.
I would too. I think specifically too, the opening sequence of Bad Girl shows us Sally Ehlers walking down the aisle. This is Dorothy. Yeah. And you see her talking with someone else who's hemming her dress, saying, hey, gets easier on the 8th or 9th time. And this is the satire of getting married multiple times, but then it becomes clear that she is a runway or a wedding dress model.
Yeah.
And that she really isn't getting married. This then starts the story of how she does talk with a lot of men, and she feels like she gets picked up all the time, almost to a point where she and her friend kind of find different ways to annoy men, which I gotta tell you, if this movie is it Edith? It's Dorothy and Edith?
Edna,
thank you. So Dorothy and Edna. If this movie was Dorothy and Edna finding different ways to annoy men, of just what if I play my ukulele really loud next to you? I think I would love this movie.
Yeah.
But in doing this, she meets Eddie Collins. She strikes up a conversation with him. And the crux of this movie is that she finds herself staying at Eddie Collins' place specifically until 4 a.m., which is taboo. Nothing's alluded to having happened, but she's there until 4 a.m. And in effort to not get in trouble with her brother, who among us can't relate to this, they got married to avoid any kind of controversy there. And I think that itself lends itself exactly to what you're saying, of how it tried to talk about the code, or it tried to get around what eventually became the code. And it had a very difficult time getting made because the source material of this does not shy away from what this movie alludes to.
Right. The source material talks very clearly when Dorothy stays at Eddie's place. It blatantly says they had a romantic evening. They had a fling. That's just alluded to here. And really almost in a way that you don't know if they did or didn't, but because her brother believes so, we'll just go with that. Sure, they did.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff in here about visits to the doctors and things that are kind of left out of the movie or are played more for laughs. A lot of tweaks. When Fox, I believe, Fox wanted to have the movie made, and they could not find a director to make this movie because everybody was like, I'm not touching that book. I'm going to have to twist it so much just to get a film out. And finally, Frank Borzage was like, fine, I'll do it. My contract's almost up or whatever, so if it doesn't work out, then we're whatever. No harm.
It is interesting how it came to be, because when I was reading about that, you're right about everything you just said, but it sounded a bit more like he was tasked with this.
Right.
Like the studio was more like, hey, your contract's almost up, so you're going to do a project. He's like, great. And they're like, and it's this one. He's like, oh,
yes,
come on. But he rose to the occasion and made the version of this that he could at the time. And that's a version that, we talked about Smiling Lieutenant last week, or this last episode.
Yeah.
And that's a movie that kind of dances around the subject of sex and sexual relations in a very funny, like, carefree way. And this handles it a bit more like a death sentence. Like it's a lot more serious with its tone about how this is all handled. And that was a little confusing for me, just because obviously this was very much a real thing in the 1930s, of the way that we saw relations and the way that we viewed women, fairly or unfairly, of the way they'd be in relationships with men. And if you had any kind of premarital sex, that was a scarlet letter on you. So you had to get married immediately. And I understand that a bit, the plot device leaning on, well, hey, nothing may have happened there. Because again, the movie just kind of has them embracing, and then they just kind of stay, maybe fall asleep. That's kind of what the movie like proposes, is like, maybe they just fell asleep. And she woke up at 4 a.m. and was like, oh man, I got to get out of here. And then that then is the crux of the movie of like, well, now I got to get, married. Interesting that this is the second movie in a row that we're talking about a plot device that hinges on a forced marriage.
Yeah.
Not even forced, but like almost kind of an arranged marriage.
Yeah, like, we've got to do this now for whatever reason.
In order for this to work.
Yeah.
But also, I say forced or arranged. Both of them are kind of like, Eddie is kind of like, it wouldn't be the worst thing in the world if you and I got together. And she's like, oh, you would never regret it, I swear. So they're both very willing. I also thought of this. It's funny that we mentioned Frank Borzage with Seventh Heaven and everything, because a lot of the relationship between Eddie and Dorothy here seemed kind of similar to Seventh Heaven.
Yes.
Like, especially him being like, it's not the worst thing in the world if you and I got together. That is almost verbatim what Chico says in Seventh Heaven.
He's very hesitant to just straight up be romantic.
Correct.
And
admit his feelings.
Yeah, and it does feel like he's, even if this isn't the case, he's proposing it as kind of a favor he's doing. Oh, don't worry about it. We can get married. I'll do that for you so that your brother won't be mad at you. That kind of thing. When really, he is like, wow, I kind of like this dame. Maybe I'll keep her around. It is. And I think that speaks a lot to Frank Borzage. When we talked about Seventh Heaven, we did say that this was kind of the genre that he found himself lingering in for a long time. He spends a lot of time in his movies with young love and kind of this, like we're saying, almost like a forced love that then blossoms into something that feels less forced.
Yeah, absolutely. I do, before we get too far, want to say that the reason that I mentioned William Pauly as Jim Haley, you mentioned that Jim is Dorothy's brother. That's 100% true. The reason I want to make sure we mention him is that he actually appears as Jim, Dorothy's brother, in the movie, but also on the stage play from 1930. Really?
Okay.
So he's reprising his role here, which I thought was interesting, especially since he doesn't have a ton to do. Kind of a weird returning character to have in this, but it's completely fine. I would tell you more about the plot, but essentially what we have told you is the crux of the story, and everything else that happens after that is the miscommunication and the trials and tribulations of these two navigating a marriage. And not even like in Seventh Heaven, where it's kind of like a fake marriage that turns into a real one. I think they put an earnest try into this marriage from the get-go.
Yeah.
But it really does come down to Eddie is so different and Dorothy is so different, which, to be honest with you, I didn't think they really were, that their miscommunications created hijinks in their relationship.
Right.
Really misunderstandings of like, yeah, I'm going to be working late. And she's like, well, what if he's talking to someone? What if he's actually doing this? A lot of insecurities.
Yeah.
I think this is a good time to kind of start saying how we feel about the movie. I didn't really care for Bad Girl that much. The thing for me is that it does kind of hinge itself upon the idea of a miscommunication. And the entirety of the movie is this proposal that comes out of preventing anyone from being in trouble, and then their relationship because of it. And that relationship is a series of, I'm not properly communicating my feelings to you, so you're taking this as an assumption, and then I take this as an assumption, and this spirals out of control. And in a comedy, that makes a good bit of sense. This, especially watching alongside The Smiling Lieutenant, does not scream comedy. There are comedic elements to it, but that's not the tone of the movie itself.
Right.
So I found myself kind of confused by the tone. Like, this movie felt like it was at war with itself in its tone and themes. So I wasn't a big fan of it. I do want to shout out our friend of the pod, Bryce, who has a Letterboxd review of this movie. And the opening sentence of it, I think, is a just dead ringer for the plot of this. I don't know why this is called Bad Girl. Interesting, because Dorothy is not a bad girl, and like, you know, what you would consider bad girl, but maybe it's the title, and I'm sure you're going to agree with this. Maybe it's the title that she's worried to not have because she stayed out till 4 a.m.
Sure.
But because she avoided that, the whole idea of bad girl just seems kind of out of place. So with that said, I kind of want to turn it over to you because I know you and I don't have a similar opinion of this movie.
Yeah, and I don't want to come out like I love this movie or anything, but I do think I enjoyed it a little bit more than you did. I agree with the tone kind of not being consistent throughout the whole movie. When this first started, I was very into Dorothy.
I agree.
This felt like a very progressive movie.
Yeah.
And a very like girl power kind of movie when it first takes off.
Yeah.
I love when she is walking down the aisle and there are men like flirting with her, and she has so many great lines, none of which I've written down. Fantastic. I looked at my notes.
I will say that one line that specifically stuck out to me was after the bridal show that she did. She's leaving and there's a guy who's like, hey, you and I should get together.
Yes.
And she's like, yeah, you know, my boyfriend's actually a prize fighter and he heard that someone was trying to hit on me. So he's actually walking around here trying to find the guy.
Yes.
So I don't know if that's a good idea. Great bit.
That's what it is. Yeah. And one of the guys, this is what it is. When she walks by him, he mentions going out after the fashion show. And she's like, sorry, I've got to drive my 2 pet goldfish around, but if you want, there's an extra seat available. And he's just like,
maybe you can join him.
What?
Yeah.
And it just she's just that girl. She's like, I'm constantly getting hit on. Even when she like makes a phone call, you can hear like the operator, whoever she's calling, the guy she's got to talk to for 2 seconds at the store. She's like, he's hitting on me too, and she's just over it. And all of her little quips and stuff, we mentioned this in the Smiling Lieutenant episode, but just the writing in all of these movies and how they're not afraid to shy away from. I'm sorry, they're not shying away from like the slang and the dialogue of the time. And I think that made her and Edna, her best friend, so much fun. And I was having a blast. I thought this was very funny. I think once her and Eddie's relationship really started to develop, that's when I started to lose interest.
Right.
Just like you said, the plot is based on this, what if he's doing this? And then he retaliates with, well, what if she's feeling this way? And that just goes back and forth from the moment they meet to the moment they get married to him buying an apartment for her, thinking that's what she wants. But in reality, she's pregnant and stressed about that. And then it goes as far as, well, she doesn't want this kid. Well, he doesn't want this kid. And that's the whole movie.
Right. And those things aren't true, right? It's not that he's concerned that she may not want the kid, but because she's concerned that he may not want them, then she's kind of like, well, maybe I don't if he doesn't either.
Right.
So it really is hinged upon like a miscommunication, just them not speaking to each other. Much like getting an apartment. She mentions like, hey, what if we had more space? He's like, oh, she wants a bigger apartment. But in reality, she's thinking about having space for the baby.
Right.
She talks about getting another job. He's like, well, why would you want another job that looks horrible on me? Which was a thing at the time. Mm-hmm. And in reality, she's thinking about making more money so they can have more space for the baby. So there's just a series of like, you're thinking the right way. You're just not saying what you need to say to get this.
Right.
And I think my problem with what you're saying here, well, I mean, it sounds like we agree on the tone, but the main problem is that introduction that we have to Dorothy, that character that she has is kind of gone. Because we don't see her like now be the vocal stand up for herself and her rights to her husband. She kind of recoils a bit. And now she's recoiling and like not talking to him and standing up for herself. And I didn't see the connection of why she would do that. And it didn't make sense to me. So
Yeah.
that was the tonal shift. And again, movies can have multiple tones. That's completely fine. I'm a big believer in like, your more comedic movies having like a very hard-hitting moment. But this one didn't make any sense to me in terms of why that tone would shift for those characters.
Yeah, and to go back and answer your earlier question about the title Bad Girl and how she doesn't really represent that title at all, I think that early on, her actions from like a 1930s perspective, you can see that she's not the, oh, thank you so much for your compliment or this, that, and the other thing. She is kind of like,
Crass.
yeah, but in a very charming and attractive way,
Right.
which is probably the problem she has. Like that just escalates the problem she has with men already.
Right.
But then that does go away. And I think it's one of those things where, okay, well, once a woman finds her husband, she becomes that, she is the wife and her personality kind of disappears. Just to be clear, I don't think that, but I think that is the way that women are presented in these movies.
Correct. And then the characters around them have that portrayal or that thought of them in that way. So you're right. It's of its time for sure. And that's why it's difficult to look at some of these movies and like fully rate it, because there's an understanding, a social norm of the time that we don't have currently. But knowing what we know of the 1930s, we can kind of make some assumptions and draw some lines of what that assumption might be. And in this case, it very much is the idea of a bad girl being not prim and proper, not being very like accepting of these advances and like, well, thanks so much. Gee whiz, it'd be great for us to get together, maybe,
Right.
More meeting them where they are and having that attitude back to them, which hilarious. That's a bad girl when in reality it's just standing up for yourself. But okay, that's the joke, I'm assuming. So what's interesting about this is that the whole reason that Dorothy is very interested in Eddie is that Eddie is not immediately trying to hit on her. Eddie is not like these other men that are just making advances after advances. He's letting it breathe a little bit. And she appreciates this, especially since she first met him trying to annoy him with a ukulele and playing next to him. So she then feels bad. Hey, he probably wasn't that kind of guy, so maybe I should go apologize to him. And then that kind of births this connection between them. Even before they start getting together, there's still that miscommunication of like, hey, you were supposed to meet me here. Oh, sorry, this happened. So from the get-go, they're not really on the same page. But then that just continued escalating, where they just continuously were not on the same page. He's going to the doctor to try and like get a better doctor for her because she wants to feel really safe with the whole pregnancy, like going through it. And he finds that doctor, but he has to stay out late to do it. So then she starts judging why he's out so late. And it just feels like, just sit down and talk. Like,
right.
as an audience member, you're just like, guys, just talk. What are we doing here? And that makes it a little frustrating. But that being said, it's not like this is a terrible movie. It's not a bad movie by any means. It's just difficult to get involved in this story emotionally and then have a lot of sympathy for what ends up happening to them. And it's probably a good time to start mentioning where this actually goes. Once they both are aware, I shouldn't say they're both aware that they have a baby. She's aware from the get-go. Once Eddie is aware that they're having a baby, you kind of see the wheels turning a little bit of like, okay, maybe this is the moment where the story kind of shifts back to the original tone. And now they're on the same page and they can get this done. But because she never got that job that she wanted, they are trying to like balance the budget a bit differently and trying to pay off this doctor that she really wanted. And instead of having that conversation, this continues. And he ends up being a prize fighter, boxing, and trying to make $40 a fight. I want to stop here. Would you fight someone for $40?
In 1931?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
That's good money.
What would the rate be for that? The exchange rate?
I have no idea. Should I look it
It's
up?
a lot of money. Let's look it up.
Let's look it up.
All right. So, $40. It was 40, right? Not 50.
I believe so.
Let's say 31. Yeah.
Yeah.
Worth today. Okay. This would be the equivalent of $855 to $877 today. So just under $900. Let's call it a cool $900. Would you get in the ring and fight a guy for $900?
If it was another guy like me,
Who
probably.
was also trying to get $900?
Right. Like, as long as it's not, hey, would you fight Tyson? Then maybe. But I would
I don't
also
know if
have.
there's an amount of money I would fight Tyson for.
No. That's, hey, would you die for money? It's like, probably not.
Thanks for asking.
Yeah, appreciate that. Yeah, I'd have to be in like a position where I'm like, I'm about to have a baby and I have no money. I should probably go fight someone who's not Mike Tyson and just see if I can do that.
Yeah, and because he becomes a prize fighter in that sense, he's coming home and having bruises, but he's not telling Dorothy that he's becoming a prize fighter because how do you have that conversation?
Yeah.
So then she starts thinking he's getting in fights like at bars and stuff, and he's not really invested in the relationship. So all of this kind of like spirals into, well, we have the baby, but are we really interested in the baby? And they just have a come to Jesus moment. They just talk and they're like, hey, I want to be here. Hey, I want to be here too. Okay. Let's be together. This felt very rushed to me, that conversation.
Because it really is like, wait a minute, you do want to have a baby?
Yeah.
I didn't think you did.
And the baby's right there while they're having this conversation.
The baby's like, yeah, what gives?
Yeah, guys, what's going on? I want to come back to the scene about the baby. I've talked to you about this off pod. I want to come back to that scene specifically.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where the humor comes back a little bit more. There's little like peaks of humor in this that I really enjoyed. There's another one we'll talk about here in a second. But I want to get to the overarching story. And this ultimately results in both of them realizing, oh, hey, you do want to be here and we do want to have this life together. So they are in the car, really happy, embracing each other, embracing the baby, the end. And I think ultimately my issue with the movie is that it just doesn't feel like anything really happened in this. It was a series of miscommunication breakdowns and it could have been easily resolved. And the tone, that's all fine. I don't mind a minimal story, but the tone was so all over the place that it was difficult for me to feel super invested. Yeah. So I think that's why I'm not as high on Bad Girl, but by no means am I saying it's a bad movie. It was just more difficult for me to captivate me.
Yeah. This is one of those things where I sometimes wonder, should I watch all of these movies twice, back to back?
Interesting.
It's a lot.
Which up till now you have.
That's true. That's true.
If not multiple times.
Yeah. Because I think you go in expecting something to happen. And that could be just the title of this movie alone is an example of that. Oh, a movie about a bad girl. And then you're kind of strung along at the beginning with the way that Dorothy behaves. And Edna. I want to talk about Edna for sure. But then the movie has its twist and everything changes. And maybe a second viewing where I go through and I know what I'm getting, I'd be able to look at it in a more analytical way that doesn't feel full of surprise and shock.
Sure. And I think one reason that it's difficult for me to kind of see the reason why it would be called Bad Girl, even like a satirical sense, is having just watched Smiling Lieutenant, Claudette Colbert is almost as much of a bad girl in that sense as Sally Ellers is in this.
Yeah.
So it's difficult to kind of be as invested in that story when I feel like I'm not really aware of what's going on with the central theme of it.
Now, I do think, from what I read, the original novel was called Bad Girl as well.
Correct.
And again, that had all of these taboos and things, and it went into detail. So I'm sure that the character in that story is, quote unquote, more of a bad girl. It does spend a lot more time with the pregnancy and kind of the, I don't know if I feel comfortable like having this baby because I don't know if Eddie really wants it. And those are things that are not going to show up in a 1931 pre-code film because you can't have a mother or a expecting mother say, I don't know if I want this baby.
Right.
That does not happen. So I think that the title, they kept it to kind of draw in audiences, because in 1931, what man doesn't want to see a film about a bad girl?
Correct.
This is like the It Girl with Clara Bow. Mm-hmm. But because they had to tweak the story so much for the censorship, you lost a lot of what made her the bad girl.
Yeah, I think the way to kind of put it is like if Jurassic Park, the novel, the movie, they were like, hey, we can't put dinosaurs in this. And you still called it Jurassic Park, but it was just about a theme park.
Yeah.
Well, unfortunately, that's a misleading title because now we're like, well, where's the Jurassic part of this play in?
Exactly.
So I wonder if, I haven't seen the play and I haven't read the original novel, but I wonder if those advances that they have towards Dorothy in the first couple scenes are more accepted. And she's like, cool, yeah, good. I'm a good time girl. Like, let's go and do it. That's the independence of that character.
Sure.
And that's where the bad girl comes from. I'm sure also that scene with Eddie when she stays in his apartment until 4 p.m. or 4 a.m., there's probably more scenes that are shown or alluded to than just, it goes pitch black and then they wake up.
Right, yeah.
So I'm sure there's some things like that that'll lead to or allude to the bad sense of Bad Girl, but it's missing from the movie. So it just feels like kind of a misnomer.
Yeah. And I think it does turn it into more of a comedy film with elements of drama sprinkled in.
Yes.
And that's what causes the tonal shift and tonal identity crisis in a way.
I'd almost flip it. I think for me, it feels like a drama with moments of comedy.
Really?
And not a comedy with moments of drama. Because the drama to me felt more present than the comedy did.
Okay.
But it's funny because even, you mentioned Edna, even Edna is like, hey, why don't you just talk to your wife?
She is the highlight of the movie for me.
Yeah. Well, she's the voice of reason.
She is. But even besides that, her comedy in this cracks me up. Her relationship with Eddie kills me.
Yeah.
It's so funny. God, there's a part where he's leaving and he says goodbye to Dorothy, and when he says goodbye to Edna, he's like, "So long, meddlesome." Yeah, he calls her meddlesome. It's so funny. And she's just constantly busting his chops. She comes home and he's doing the dishes and she critiques it, and he's like, "Why are you here?
Yeah.
Why are you saying anything to me at all?" And she's like, "Oh, come on." Like, I love their relationship so much. And I do love that Eddie is a good husband throughout this whole movie.
He is. He's faithful.
Yes, he has these moments of hesitation and worry because he is young. They're both young, and he's very career focused as a character. But he knows what he's gotten into with Dorothy, and he wants to move forward. He is in love with her, and it's just those miscommunications that really cause any type of tension or drama throughout the whole movie. But at no point does he leave her side or not do anything. Like, everything he does is for her.
Yes.
And I do love that. Like, they are cute together when they're not stirring up drama because of a spiraling miscommunication.
Right. Well, and it's so easy to kind of draw Eddie as this character who is going to go to the bar and drink himself stupid because he's so upset at the situation. He doesn't do that. And it'd be very easy to draw Dorothy as like, now you're this distant housewife who doesn't feel like she's connected to her husband. So now you're kind of a stereotype in that sense too. It would be very easy for the movie to do that, and it doesn't. And I do appreciate that. But that makes it even more confusing when both of them kind of see each other as that. She sees him as like he's going to the bars and he's getting, drunk and and getting in fights. And he sees her as like, well, she's just not telling me what she wants, and she's kind of vague about everything. So they see each other as these stereotypes that they aren't.
Yeah.
And that made it kind of more confusing because just talk to each other, man. What are we doing? But I do want to say a couple things about the comedy that you talked about. The comedy in this is very much present, especially in the first 15 minutes of this movie.
Sure.
Kind of takes a backseat as things go on. But there are some lines that actually kind of knocked me out. We talked a bit off pod about how there's a scene in the hospital where there's a nurse who is trying to present a baby to these women who just gave birth. And she's like, have you seen this one? Look how cute they are. She's like, oh, can I hold it? And she's like, no, you can't. And just pulls them away and walks away. She's like, this one's not yours. And she does this 2 times. Maybe even technically 3. The 3rd time she does it to Dorothy, she's like, aren't these the prettiest hands you've ever seen? And she's like, yeah, I guess the kid's all right. And she's like, well, it's yours. And I was like, this woman is terrorizing these women who just went through childbirth.
She's just there to punk every single new mother.
That's 100% what it is.
Yeah.
She's punking these mothers. And I thought this was hysterical. I was like, I kind of want a movie about this is the bad girl. This is the bad girl in the movie of just I'm a nurse at a hospital, but I like to have fun with it.
Yeah, because later on there's the scene that causes Dorothy to go into hysterics because she thinks something's wrong with her baby.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was just the nurse being like, boy, I shouldn't have dropped that baby. And she's like, what?
Oh, no!
Yeah, and then she comes out and she's like, yeah, your baby's fine. What are you talking about? It's so weird. Yes, but the dialogue, and it's funny how many comedic scenes take place in this movie that don't involve any of our main characters.
True.
Because there's another moment in the hospital where a mother is holding her new baby, and she says, I named her Shirley after my mother-in-law. Her name was Esther, but it's close enough. And it's like, what? Who is this woman? And then the camera just pans over to Dorothy, and you're like, oh, that's not important? That was just a zinger?
Yeah.
I'm for it.
I mean, I'm for it too, and if the movie did more of that, maybe I would see that humor more present, but it really was few and far between for me. We talked last episode about how I want to be more present about the script or the screenplay of these movies, because we are getting to more of a wittier style of writing in the 5th year of the Academy Awards. And the one line that got me is there's a scene where Eddie finds out for the first time that Dorothy is pregnant. And they find out at a house party with all their friends there. And while he continues to be like, yep, we're getting a house because you want a bigger space. Because you want more space, right? Just space, that's it. And she breaks down. and starts crying. And I believe it's Edna that actually has to tell him, hey, she's pregnant, you fool.
Right.
And he has to kind of combat this. And at one point, he looks over to his friend. And I want to go ahead and say that I think that this friend appears in one scene, and it's this scene. Like, I don't think he appears in any other scene. And he's just standing there next to Eddie. And Eddie looks at him, and he says, Sue told me, but I forgot. And he has his hands on his hips. And he delivers it like Skippy would in the movie Skippy.
Yeah.
Where he's like, Sue told me, but I forgot. And you can hear almost the audience like, woo! Like clapping in the background. And I was like, what is going on? To where like that's the one line this guy has. He was like, I'm going to hit that line. This is my one line. I'm hitting it.
He did a great job.
I thought that was great. And again, that's another one where the delivery is just as important as, you know, it's everything else that you mentioned of like, I named my daughter after my mother and it's a completely different name.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like irreverent. And I appreciate that. But again, that's the tonal shift of like the humor throughout the movie was not irreverent. It was those two scenes for me. And that's why those were a highlight to me specifically.
That's so interesting.
But you're right. Because maybe now that I have an understanding of this movie, if I go back and revisit it, I'm meeting it more on its level than trying to figure out what its level actually is. Mm-hmm. And that's what I feel like I spent the majority of the time of my runtime of this doing, is trying to like put my finger on what this was.
I feel like you and me right now are both holding Reese's peanut butter cups, but you have too much peanut butter in yours.
And you have too much chocolate.
Yeah. And I'm saying, boy, this comedy had a little too much drama for me in the tone shift. And you're like, this drama was a little too silly at times, or not silly enough, rather.
Correct.
And yeah, that's so interesting because I thought this was pretty funny throughout, except for these dramatic moments. I do want to point out, too, I said this in the last episode, I've been watching Friends lately.
Yeah.
And just like The Smiling Lieutenant, this does feel like an elongated episode of Friends.
It does. This is classic Ross and Rachel.
Yes, this is Ross leaving the list on Chandler's computer of what he doesn't like about Rachel, like the pros and cons list.
Right.
And just when you think these two are having like the most romantic moment, Dorothy and Eddie, boom. What do you mean I have chubby ankles or whatever it is Ross says about her? And I think that used to bother me a lot when an entire movie's plot was hinged on that one little moment of miscommunication. Did you watch House of Dragon?
No.
There's a moment in that where a main character is dying and he's kind of losing his mind. And his dying words are like, the leader of the kingdom should be... Yeah.
Yeah.
And then someone like twists what he says and says, oh, he said my name. I stopped watching after that moment because I was like, I cannot do this. I can't watch an entire war take place over this dumb miscommunication.
Right.
In a little goofy, silly comedy drama, I'm all for that. I love it in the 1930s.
Interesting. I think I had the same... I held Bad Girl to the same standard that you held House of the Dragon to, where I'm like, I cannot base all of my emotional involvement in these two people who are just not talking to each other.
Yeah.
And we'll get there eventually. But to the thing that reminded me the most of this. But again, it's not a bad movie. It's not something that I really didn't enjoy my time with this. It was just more so I had seen Aerosmith, I had seen The Smiling Lieutenant, and then I watched Bad Girl and I was like, okay, cool.
Yeah,
I still enjoyed it more than like, Cimarron or Trader Horn. And
It's coming for Cimarron.
well, look, here's the thing. It deserves it.
Yes, agree.
I'll say that.
Yeah.
I think that's the safest thing to say. Trader Horn also deserves that a good bit. So in that sense, Bad Girl is still, you can see the vision,
Yeah.
but it's clouded. And to me, I couldn't get behind that as much because of how cloudy it was. One thing I do want to talk about is some behind the scenes stuff with this. You mentioned that Frank Borzage was the director here.
Yeah.
An interesting thing, and maybe we'll talk about this live. I wonder what the banner will be like for this. Frank Borzage was the first to win Best Director twice.
Yes, he was. Isn't that cool?
But was he?
What's happening?
So I like how I kind of did that, like Unsolved Mysteries.
Oh.
Where I'm like, he was the first director to win. You're like, yeah, he was. And I was like, oh, was he?
And then it cuts
And then
to
music
commercial.
just like, "Brrr."
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, he was. Like, in the technical sense that he was the first person to win Best Director twice, that is true. However, Louis Milestone did win 2 Oscars for directing, but Two Arabian Nights was Best Comedy Direction.
Right.
So technically, that comedy direction category went to the wayside. And because that's not around anymore, we're talking about the Best Director or Best Directing
Sure.
category. So these two people kind of held that title at the same time, Louis Milestone having won 2 direction Oscars, but Frank Borzage is the first person to win Best Directing across the board.
Right,
twice.
right. You know, I like that though. I'm a fan of the Frank Borzage movies we've seen.
Yeah.
I like Seventh Heaven. I
He
like
definitely has a
that girl.
style.
He does. Yeah, that like young romance that we talked about, 100%. That's what you're going to get from Borzage. And we've talked about Louis Milestone now many times, and we're huge fans of his work. Very cool that those two who have been around since the first Academy year. I think that's what's coolest about it is the first win in the directing categories for both of them came from the very first Academy year.
Yes.
I like that a lot.
And again, it shows the evolution of these movies.
Mm-hmm.
Because you look at Seventh Heaven against Bad Girl, and you can see where they've grown. Not just in technological achievements, I should say technical achievements, but also in the way that he grew as a director.
Yeah.
I think the same thing with Louis Milestone. Now, I will say Louis Milestone, for me, probably more of my preferred director between these two, but it's really neat to see the style of them. I think something we talk about a lot now with directors is, you know, we have kind of like prestige filmmakers. Scorsese, you know what you're going to get from a Scorsese movie. Nolan, you know what you're going to get from that. They have tones, they have themes that they revisit. And it's interesting to see this with these directors too. I think every director has a little bit of a theme, but, you know, some more than others. Others are like, well, this is my Western and this is this. And they're not really connected. It's just I made the movie. But Borzage and Milestone, you do see their style. And you see that. I think Borzage is a little bit more the couple, like the two leads. Milestone's more of a company. And I like that aspect.
Yeah. I think that Milestone as well isn't afraid to cross or go through genres.
Sure.
And he does have more of like a technical style. I think that Borzage very much sticks with themes more than like a visual style.
True.
With the young romance and all of that. Because Seventh Heaven did have some great camera work going from the bottom floor up to Chico's 7th floor apartment, and that very cool, like almost elevator-like shot.
Yeah, the escalation.
Yeah. There's nothing like that in Bad Girl. And I think that Frank Borzage, as he developed as a filmmaker, he had the opportunity to really find his niche, and he did it from a storytelling point of view rather than like a visual. Because Bad Girl doesn't have that type of visual storytelling, I don't think.
It doesn't. The only thing that kind of stood out to me is really interesting was when it cut to Eddie being a prize fighter. I like that scene of him boxing in the ring because the camera's in there with him. You see him and this other guy fighting. But on top of that, you see the audience. You see the arena that they're in and fighting in. And I thought this was a nice bit of scale and scope that we didn't see in his other shots. And otherwise, it really was just more like, well, I guess we put the camera here to get this conversation. You weren't getting a lot of emotion from it. I thought that shot had some emotion in it, and I really appreciated it.
Yeah. Borzage kind of has that filming a stage play kind of vibe.
Totally.
But he still uses a wide array of angles and things, and he's making it more interesting than things we've seen in the past, like Disraeli, for example. So I do like this film and Borzage. I do want to talk about its other nomination, the Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yes.
I think that is a really prestigious nomination here because you had what I think you could consider an unadaptable story at the time.
Yes.
The fact that this studio was trying to have this novel made into a film, but everybody was saying, no, we're not doing that. I don't know. And Edwin J. Burke took the story and said, all right, I'm going to make it so that we can do this for the screen. And then worked with Frank Borzage to put together this film that, while I think we both agree the tone doesn't sit right throughout the whole thing, you did take this very taboo-filled novel and you made it something that could be seen by a large audience in 1931. And that deserves, I think, the nomination for Best Adapted Screenplay.
Yeah, I think so. You know, we're keeping ourselves accountable of not looking up who wins these awards. Again, I think I'm pretty familiar with who won Best Picture. But
I spoiled it for myself.
Okay, well, there you go. But I don't know who won a Best Adapted Screenplay for this.
Tell you what, do you want to know?
Does the audience want to know?
Probably.
Sure.
Let's do it. It was this.
I was about to say spoilers, and you're just, that's this. Well, that seems about right? I mean, like with the I don't want to say troubled, but the storied history of getting this onto paper.
Yeah.
It makes sense that this would be nominated or win. I don't know that I'm going to say like, yeah, this is one of my favorite like screenplays.
Sure.
I wouldn't say that, but I think the background of how it came to be a screenplay, it makes sense.
It's funny. I feel like a lot of the movies that are nominated for screenplay, I don't always enjoy the plot, but I do notice a bump in dialogue.
Yes. Yeah.
And that we've talked about that now in nauseum. That's the that's the term
I
I'm
was going to say,
looking
if
for.
you're looking for a count, I have nothing for you.
Yeah, just with like Edna's great little punchlines and Dorothy's punchlines, and really something we haven't talked about with this movie. It takes place during like the Depression era.
Yes.
And I think Eddie is a very interesting character. His kind of cynical look on the world, but still sprinkled with a bit of hope that he's going to open his own business and he's going to be successful. And he's not going to be one of those down and out guys that's down at the soup kitchen and not, earning a wage.
Right. He is going to continue to try.
Yeah. I liked that element of Eddie. I think it added a lot of comedy, but also a lot of much needed personality. During this era, most of the men we see are kind of one note, and I think Eddie is pretty nuanced.
Yeah, I think that's fair to say. The other men that we see, especially later towards the film, they have more comedic lines. You mentioned at the hospital, like some of the lines that they say there, specifically in the men's waiting room. There's one guy that's asked, "How many kids do you have?" And he said, like 6, maybe
Yeah.
7 or 8. They're like, "You don't know how many kids he has?" He's like, "It's at least 6."
Right.
And I like the delivery of that line too, of, okay, hold on now. You're not going to catch me in this. It's at least 6. So if they're not one note in the way that they hit on Dorothy, they're mostly just kind of comedic relief in those lines. So you're right.
Yeah, and that's a testament to the adapted screenplay as well, because I highly doubt all of those jokes were in the book verbatim.
Right.
So they were writing these for the big thing. That joke in the waiting room reminds me, I think it's Norm Macdonald. One time they asked him, "Well, how old is your oldest kid?" And he goes, "He's either 10 or 15. It's just like, okay, cool.
There's also a line that I think it's Eddie has in that same scene where they're all like, "So how's this been for you?" And he's like, "Well, I got to tell you, I'm never doing this again."
Yeah.
And I think that it's that's kind of hinting at the hopelessness of him that he doesn't have. Because you're right, he's a very hopeful person. And even though all this happens, I think what you would kind of expect from this is It's a Wonderful Life. Like he kind of just gets involved in alcohol and he just kind of becomes sad and depressed about this. But in reality, he's just more stressed. He's like, well, I got to do it because it's my family and that's my wife. But God, this is a little tough.
Yeah. And that's why I like all of the characters in this. It's a shame that so much of the plot hinges on the miscommunication. But I think every character in this delivers at least 10 zingers. And it keeps me entertained. It keeps me happy. I love, there's the moment where Dorothy is talking to her brother once he finds out she spent the night at Eddie's, and she's getting kicked out. And there's a moment where Edna's like, "Shameful. Shame. I can't believe you." And her brother says something, basically calling her a tramp or whatever. And just as she's about to leave, Edna's like, "All right, let's go, Dorothy. We're out of here." And he's like, "Where are you going?" She's like, "Listen, I heard how you talked about her, and I know where I was last night at 4 a.m., so I can only imagine what you say about me. So have a nice life. See you in the cemetery." And it's like, damn.
Yeah.
Get him.
I agree with you. I think Edna is probably the best part of this movie.
So good.
I also really liked what you alluded to before, is that we talked about how in Love Parade, this would lead itself to sex comedies and what those looked like. Obviously, that did the same with Smiling Lieutenant. Even kind of here, too. I don't think I'd label it as a sex comedy, but obviously the plot of this revolves around the idea of whether sex happened or not, and the shame that comes with that being premarital. But with that said, I think there are tropes that you see in romantic comedies, sex comedy or not, that Edna is a character. Edna is present in a lot of those more modern rom-coms, and it's excellent to see kind of the source code of like, oh, you were the beginning.
Yes.
And Edna is the beginning. So I agree with you in that. I think Edna is the highlight for me because you can see such a clear, like, oh, you're the best friend. And you're the importance of a best friend character in these movies. Not just for the comedic relief, but more to be the anchor for these people.
She's like the Ethel to the Lucy.
100%.
Yeah.
The Edna to the Dorothy.
Absolutely.
I have a question for you.
Okay.
We talk about Frank Borzage doing Seventh Heaven and how that ending was kind of up to interpretation of the two of them embracing each other in the sunlight, and whether that was they were actually together or just that's how she pictured being with Chico if he was still alive.
Right.
Kind of the open nature of it. This is what inspired Damien Chazelle to make his movies be open-ended as well. So for you, with La La Land specifically, for you, with Bad Girl, this is not an open-ended ending.
No.
This is pretty cut and dry. Do you think that this was intentionally, well, hey, a lot of people had some questions about this, so I'm going to make it very clear what this ending is? Or did you think that wasn't even something that crossed his mind? Did it feel like an overcorrection to you or intentional?
No. And I think because it was adapted from a book, he was probably limited to how it ends. But even if that's not the case, I don't know that, in my mind, he had Seventh Heaven on his mind while he was making this.
Sure.
Or at least not to the extent of, how am I going to finish this movie? How will it end?
Right.
That ending is kind of cute, and it is a little too saccharine.
Eddie's an insufferable dad to me.
Yeah.
Where he's like, this is the future president of the United States you got in the car here.
Right.
It's like, all right, man.
I do like when the cabbie's like, that's what they all say. And he's like, all right, I'm about to knock this guy out.
He does actually lift off his seat a little bit. He's like, why I on it?
Yeah.
He's like, just calm down.
But it is ultimately, like, it's a cute ending. They both are finally parents who both openly agree, this is nice. I'm happy to be with you. I'm happy to have this kid. I'm looking forward to the future with you. Something that bothers me in movies from this era are how the endings just kind of happen. Like,
yeah,
it had a final line where she goes to take the baby back from Eddie because she's like, oh, it's spitting up on you or something. He's like, spitting up? I'm soaked all the way through. The end.
You know what? It reminded me of, was it The Divorcee? No, it was Broadway Melody.
Okay.
Broadway Melody had that, them driving away and him making that like kind of quip or one-liner, and then it just cuts.
Yeah, he's got the stutter.
Yeah, the stutter. And it felt very much like that, where it's what is the sign-off for this?
Right.
And it's not even especially a great line. So when the movie ends, you're like, oh, okay.
And it doesn't have that, like, da-da-da-da-da, like, the music's not playing or anything. It's just the end.
Correct.
Then the music kicks in.
I will say, in that same sense, I thought the opening of this movie, the score that plays during the title of Bad Girl, I thought was great. Like, it does kind of lead you to, like, hey, enjoy this comedy, which is what made it even more kind of confusing when the middle half of this movie happens. And you're like, I thought the score led me to believe this was going to be a good time. What are we doing?
Yes.
It's interesting to kind of look at the ending of Bad Girl, because I'm not going to be the guy who's like, oh, you know what? This actually inspired the ending of this movie. There's nothing reported of this. But it's hard not to see the comparisons in the last shot of this movie, Bad Girl, and look at something like The Graduate. The Graduate has this incredible last shot of Dustin Hoffman finally being with Mrs. Robinson, and they're in the back of this bus, and they're excited, and they're happy, and then you see that fade from them as the bus is driving away. And this is a similar shot of they're in the car, and you can see the background moving with them. But this one chooses to be that saccharine ending of, no, they really are happy.
Yeah.
And it's interesting to kind of talk about Frank Borzage doing Seventh Heaven and the upper interpretation ending, and now this one that is more cut and dry, very much what it is. I wonder if a movie that is hinged upon, are they really happy together? Are they really going to be good parents together? If something like The Graduate or movies that did that kind of ending looked at something like that and said, well, is that truly how I think that story would end? Wouldn't it be more interesting if it ended with them in the car with the baby and then be a little more like, oh, is this what I want?
Yeah.
I thought there's, and I want to be clear about this, zero evidence or proof to show that any of these are connected, but it did have me thinking about what this leads to, how movies can have that final shot, but also kind of raise some questions in the very last second of, is this a good ending?
Yeah.
Is this a happy ending?
I do think that that's what The Graduate was doing. I don't know if it's a direct callback to this movie, but just to that, exactly what you're speaking on. Like, yeah, they have their happy ending, but they also have the rest of their lives together.
Yes.
Yeah, I think The Graduate, that was like, they just let the camera roll.
They did.
Longer, and they were like, wow, I really like this. I don't know that they intended for
like
it
written,
to turn into that. Yeah.
Sure.
But it added so much. Like, there's so much legacy behind that one shot alone.
To me, it's the best part of that movie.
Absolutely. One thing that does happen in Bad Girl at the end that you brought up earlier is the starring,
The Boy and the Girl.
yes, lists both of the actors.
James Dunn and Sally Ellers.
Thank you so much, as the boy and the girl. I think that allows some type of like open-endedness to this, not in their story, but it does kind of present it as they are the boy and the girl. This could be anybody's story. This is such a common thing.
Sure.
Maybe this is you, and your sweetheart kind of thing. And I kind of like that. And I don't know if that was the intention there, but it is something I walked away with, where I'm like, oh, this is the classic tale of boy meets girl, and boy has a complex relationship with girl because he doesn't communicate.
The classic tale of getting married to avoid any kind of taboo nature of hanging out until 4 a.m. and then becoming a prize fighter.
Exactly.
Tale is oldest. It's so funny that you mentioned Friends in that, because you can almost hear Eddie being like front and back about the letter that she'd write him. So it does feel like a Ross and Rachel type situation, which obviously, paved the way for those situational comedies,
Sure.
even the movie comedies and the way that we write them. So again, just from a historical lens of seeing how this paved the way for what we know as like romantic comedies or sex comedies is really interesting. And you're right, this is really pushing the limit. I talked previously in our Smiling Lieutenant episode about the Hays Code. And while the Hays Code wasn't in place, Will H. Hayes was still very much the president of the MPPDA at the time, 1942 to 1945. So even before the code was in place, he was very strict about what could or could not pass. And you alluded to this. This made a very difficult operation for the screenplay to be actually written and this movie be made. So it is interesting from the perspective of a historical lens of how things like Love Parade, Bad Girl, Smiling Lieutenant, even Front Page to a certain degree in the way that it's written,
The Divorcee, lend itself to what eventually would become the Hays Code. Right.
So this is really, I do enjoy looking at this from that lens of not deserved, like, yeah, of course the code happened, but you can see the lines they were walking between.
Yeah.
And you can kind of see or feel Will H. Hayes be like, nope, we need something more concrete, a set of guidelines for self-censorship.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. I don't want to say it's a good thing. It's obviously not to censor anything like that, but it does lend itself to what movies became in the late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
So I'm interested to get to that point with you.
And what they had to be during this time as well.
Correct.
Like I like art created due to limitations. I think that's very interesting.
What can you do between the limitations?
Yes,
for sure.
That's very interesting to me, and it's part of the reason I've enjoyed this pre-code era so much.
I think there's a difference between censorship of something that exists versus how can you make this in a world that is going to be censored.
Yeah.
Because then you have a product that is, well, this is what's allowed versus we went back and removed these things that we don't like.
Right, yeah. Yeah.
Take note, George Lucas.
So, overall, I think we've got our views on Bad Girl. I know where you sit, but I'll save that for your announcement. I gave this movie 3 stars.
Yes. You and Bryce both.
Oh, Bryce gets a lot of airtime.
Everyone else who's on the Discord and talks with us, feel free to add me on Letterboxd so I can see your ratings of these movies. But we know Bryce is hitting the paint. He's watching these movies and reviewing them, so
yeah,
it pops up.
That's kind of the thing. Like he's already seen all of them, so it's easy to be like, oh, look who saw this.
Do you think Bryce is third chair? Like, if there's a third chair of the pod, do you think it's Bryce?
Listen, I won't lie. I've talked to him about guesting.
Yeah.
Bryce, call me. He didn't respond.
That makes sense.
He's watching movies.
Do you want me to hit him up? Maybe he'll respond to
me.
me.
Go for it. He's probably tired of me, so he's looking forward to talking to you.
That's probably right. He's like, for you, Ryan, definitely.
Anything, bestie.
He just doesn't address you when he's on the pod.
Never. Yeah, that's probably what's going to happen.
Yeah.
What'd you give Bad Girl?
I give Bad Girl 2 stars.
Oh, okay.
So you are correct in that the normal rating or I should say the standard rating for this is 3. It's sitting at 3.3, but 3 stars is the most stars that this is, not the most, the common rating of this movie. So you and Bryce are right there in with everyone else. 2 stars is pretty far down the list here. Again, this is just a personal preference.
Sure.
For me and what I was able to ascertain from this, it did not hit me the way that I thought it was going to, especially seeing this is from the guy who did Seventh Heaven. I thought that it would be a little more coherent than that. And not to say the movie is incoherent, it's just inconsistent is the main thing for me. So 2 stars is the rating that I feel confident with.
I think that's
with
fair.
Batgirl.
I'm totally okay with that.
And we're just right there in the middle with 2.5.
I think that's what I gave Zombievers, so that makes sense.
Let's go down the list of what Zombievers has. Teenagers in a cabin.
Yeah?
Check. Zombie Beavers. Check. John Mayer. Check.
This is true.
Before the pod started, I introduced Kyle to what is probably one of my favorite jokes, in that John Mayer has a song called Something's Missing, where he very eloquently sings about what might be missing from his life. And you could take that as a metaphor. But instead, the final bridge or the outro of that song is him going down a list of things that he may be missing. But then so you don't think that he's missing those things, he says check after it. Including money, the opposite sex, guitar. He has all of these things. So don't worry about him. That's why I said check. He's doing okay. How many times do you think there's been a podcast that's reviewed Batgirl but name dropped Zombievers?
This has got to be the first time.
It's in the tens.
Oh, you think so? You think it's that many times?
Absolutely not. Like, it's kind of like when you say a sentence out loud and you're like, I think that's the first time those words have been used in that way, ever.
That's one of my favorite trends on TikTok right now, is when someone sees like a robot freak out in a sushi restaurant and like flip a table. And they're just like
Billy Joel's playing in the background.
Yeah. And they're like, I'm the first in my bloodline to see something like this. It's like, yeah. That's true.
That's the Zombievers reference on a Bad Girl Frank Borzage episode.
First of our bloodlines.
Do you think I should hang on to my Frank Borzage impression?
You can. It's up to you. He's coming back.
He is coming back.
Farewell to Arms, eventually, we'll be covering.
Maybe I should wait for Farewell to Arms to really complete, because I have 2 movies now for the impression. By the way, for anyone playing at home, I've never heard Frank Borzage speak, but I'm just using his 2 movies that I've seen to kind of culminate an impression.
Sure.
So maybe I'll wait for that 3rd movie.
That'd be good, because I think that is the last time he'll be nominated, so it'll be a nice farewell to Frank.
Yeah, I don't think Farewell to Arms is going to be as funny to say in my voice that I do. I'll mention Bad Girl a little bit more.
Yeah, we'll have to do that.
What did you pick as your double feature?
So for my double feature, I went with the 2005 hit classic Zombievers. No, I picked something very depressing. I think something way more drama than this movie even pretends to lean towards. I went with Blue Valentine.
Oh my God. Well, I mean, when you compare the two, sure, it's a laugh or riot comedy.
Yeah.
Blue Valentine, of course.
I think that the tense relationship is my comparison, and I don't know if it lines up.
Well, there's a baby. That's a very big part of the
There
movie.
is.
Yeah.
There is. I think that there's a lot of romance in Blue Valentine, like very heated romance.
Someone plays a ukulele for someone else.
Oh my goodness.
Look at you.
You're right.
Although I don't know if he's trying to annoy her in the way that Dorothy's trying to annoy Eddie. But
I love that part where he plays the ukulele.
I love that cover that he does.
Yeah.
Always Hurt the Ones You Love.
Wow. Yeah, and
that was a vocal stem for a very long time between Taylor and I. I would always sing that. She's like, shut up.
Yeah, I know Blue Valentine is like very heavy, very depressing. And I think that's kind of what it is for me, where Bad Girl is, for me, not you, a comedy that
it's for me, not for you.
Tiptoes around in some of the drama.
Sure.
And Blue Valentine is a very heavy drama that wants nothing to do with your comedy.
Yes.
So
it wants your tears.
Exactly. They're the perfect double feature.
Derek Jean-France, right?
No idea, if I'm being honest. I'll say yes.
I'm pretty sure it's Derek. I might be saying his name incorrectly. It might be French, but it's Derek for sure. He went on to do Place Beyond the Pines with Ryan Gosling as well.
Okay.
So I'm pretty sure that's correct. Then he did Roofman.
Oh, look at him go.
There you go. You know, I've caught a couple strays on this episode about how I view this more as a drama with some comedy elements, but I do want you to know that the double feature that I picked for this, or the movie that I picked for this double feature, is a movie that does kind of balance comedy and drama, but I think at its core is more of a comedy with dramatic moments. So maybe that's truly how I see Bad Girl. But I picked, and since if you were paying attention to before the pod when I mentioned this off recording, directed by Danny DeVito, it's the 1989 War of the Roses. The idea of this movie, it kind of seems like the early stages of what's a realistic version of these two people who are miscommunicating and not talking to each other. And I think the true answer is them essentially trying to ruin each other's lives, or in the remake of this later in life called The Roses from 2025, actually actively trying to kill each other. This was the closest that I felt like a tone in the movie.
Okay.
Because the middle of the movie did very much feel like, why am I not connecting with this person? What's preventing that? And while you, the audience, are like screaming, it's this, I thought that the natural progression of their communication breakdown would have lended itself to more of a distancing themselves, or even something above distancing themselves, because that's kind of what happens in the movie. I thought it'd be more like, well, I hold contentment for you. Well, I want to ruin your life. Like, maybe now I'm going to like not have this baby despite you.
Yeah.
A couple of things, or not be responsible for this baby despite you. I thought there might be some things like that. And that's where, at the end of the day, I looked at Batgirl and I was like, I think I'm thinking of it like War of the Roses.
Mm-hmm.
So that to me feels like the progression of the relationship between Eddie and Dorothy and what that looks like in 1989.
That makes sense. I've never seen that movie, but the way you're setting it up, it makes sense to me.
Well, and DeVito has like a little bit of a sick sense of humor, so that kind of lends itself to how he views their relationship in that movie versus something like from 1931.
DeVito probably sounds similar to Borzage. In my mind, they're similar.
I don't appreciate you trying to give away my impression before I do it for the Farewell to Arms episode. But you're right. There's a little bit of similarity. Yeah. Maybe a little bit more his penguin in Batman.
Yeah.
But I love that the audience is probably like trying to piece together in real time what this sounds like. The only thing I'll give away is that, and I guess I can't mention it for Farewell to Arms as much, he would definitely say bad girl like Bad Goyle.
Yes.
Yeah.
I do like that. He's like Meowth from Pokemon.
A little bit. Like a little bit of Penguin, a little bit of DeVito, and a little bit of Meowth.
I like this.
Bad Goyle. Yeah, there you go.
That's exactly what Meowth sounds like. That's so good.
Thanks. I've been waiting for us to cover a Frank Borzage movie for me to do my Meowth.
Guys, if you have any thoughts on Bad Girl or any of the other films we're covering for this, not season, year, no, how do I say this? Academy year of the podcast, shoot us an email at outaopodcast@gmail.com. Next week, we will be covering 5-Star Final and The Champ. So looking forward to that. If you'd like to support the show, check out patreon.com/OUTAO podcast for access to the community Discord. Watch parties, we'll be doing another one of those at some point this month. More details coming soon. Access to the Best Picture poll and movie reviews.
Yep, and who knows what I've seen recently and I'm posting on there because we are recording a little more in advance for that.
It's true.
It's April. There's some good stuff coming out. I'll post that.
Yeah.
Man, can you believe the review that I dropped for... I'm leaving a blank there.
Every time you do that, it makes my life so much harder.
I realize that, and now I'm doing it intentionally because I know that you're editing out the silence there. So maybe I'll just create, like, in April, I'll create, like, a voice of me doing, like, I don't know what comes out in April. Man, I really enjoyed writing a review for the Super Mario's Galaxy movie. Yeah. Like, look forward to that.
What I want to start doing is finding random people on the streets and just having them record a line of dialogue so I can just put the most random stuff in there from the most random people.
I like that. I also like the idea of them not cooperating.
Yes.
And it would end up being, I really enjoyed this review that I ended up writing for Leave Me Alone.
Back up right now. It's a cop that I ask.
Yeah, it's just you being arrested. Oh, I'm sorry.
Can you publish this? This is the deadline. But
the funniest thing about that is the idea of the episode still being edited after you've been detained.
Someone will do it. You can take care of it. It's not going to be me. Well, all right. We'll find somebody.
Bryce.
Perfect. Third chair. Thanks, man. Can always count on you.
We appreciate you doing that, Bryce. Thank you.
He's always there for us.
I know he's having like internal panic right now. Listen to the episode. And he's like,
I think he's behind too. So he's going to listen to this episode in like 2027 and be like, what?
Did I agree to that?
I stopped talking to those guys years ago.
What's really funny is the idea that he may still do He may do editing for us between when he listens to this and 2027.
Who knows?
So he's like, oh, they're right. I did.
Yeah. Predicting the future.
Who's to say?
Who's to say? That's going to do it for this episode. As always, I'm your host, Kyle.
I'm Ryan.
And we'll see you at the movies.